So we're going to work with this scenario. You're writing a paper for class claiming that students and faculty on campus should get a flu shot. Below is a direct quote from one of Miss Aker's students from an interview that you conducted. So we have lots of context here that might be helpful. During the interview, the student also reveals that she believes everyone should get a flu shot. So we know the context for what you're doing. You know what point you're supposed to be making. You have some original information that I'm going to share in a second. A quote from a student. You know who the student is. You know what her opinion is. Okay, so the quote is, Professor Aker's class was canceled last Monday because she came down with the flu, and it was the last class before our assignment was due. I sent her an email about the questions I had, but I wasn't able to show her the paper, and the student's name is Jennifer Puller. So you have this quote that you got from this interview. You're going to pull out and use this quote from her as evidence to argue or make a point that people on campus should be required or should be encouraged to get a flu shot, whatever take you want to put on it, or spin you want to put on it. So you actually have right here all the information you need to write a paragraph similar to the ones we just looked at. In your notebook, you're going to use this framing technique, introduction and explanation, to, and on this original presentation you could work with a partner, but it's a little bit hard to do that remotely. You are going to make an opening point. You are going to provide some context for this piece of evidence that you're going to use to make that point. You can just put the ellipses down where the quote is supposed to be. You don't have to copy down the whole quote if you don't want to into your notebook. And then you're going to explain it. And I'm going to take about 5 minutes to do this. Write a good solid paragraph. Opening point that people should get a flu shot. Some context that you think will be helpful for the reader for this quote you're going to provide them. And then some explanation for that quote to explain how does this student's experience prove that people on all of campus should be encouraged to get a flu shot. And then I think you'll kind of get a sense of how to practice this and how to think about it, and also see how tricky it can be. So take about 5 minutes, take a stab at it, and then come back to me. Okay, so hopefully you have a little bit of a practice, and I'm going to look at an example with you really quick. This is a long example, and I think I didn't quite edit the quote exactly the same way. I've got Tuesday here instead of Monday, but whatever. So I want you to see, like, not whether yours is written in the same tone, because yours can be written a lot of different ways. I just want you to see that you've consider whether or not you've covered, and maybe make some notes on your own kind of practice about things that might have been that you might have forgotten or left out or are thinking about now. So during my research, I came to believe that flu shots are necessary during the flu season for everyone on campus. When I interviewed a UNCC student, Jennifer Puller, so explaining like who the interviewee was and who she is, she explained that she believes everyone on campus should get a flu shot. So that's a general takeaway of her opinion, and that's really important to know that that was her stake. She told me about her teacher, Miss Aker, having to cancel class because she came down with the flu. In my interview with her, Puller stated, so there's some setup for this, there's the quote, what this shows. So getting into the explanation with that kind of like signal. What this shows is that Puller would have had access to more efficient and effective help had the instructor taken more precautionary health measures. So this is her instance, and then I'm going to try to connect it back to the bigger issue. Furthermore, this is probably not the only instance of classes being canceled or students missing class because of the flu. This helps to demonstrate that classes would flow more smoothly and time could be saved for both students and professors if they were not affected by the flu. In the end, the result would very likely be better education and student satisfaction. Okay, so you can see here now it's not just this one quote. There's lots of stuff around it that's important for connecting all the dots, showing where it came from, giving the right amount of context for it, explaining how it proves, like what to take away from this immediate circumstance, and then how to connect it to the bigger issue. If you've ever gotten a paper back from a professor or teacher that was like a research paper, and so there's not enough of your own words or your own stuff in here, these are likely the kinds of things that we're missing, along with including like your own examples and your own questions and that kind of stuff. And using primary sources. This is an example with a partial quote. So all the same stuff, except I just want to show like sometimes you can just quote like a little bit. Like you might could take a whole paragraph from this source and quote one line of it and paraphrase the rest. And as long as we know like where it starts and stops, like I still know all of this is paraphrased. Miss Aker telling about Miss Aker having to cancel class because she came down with the flu. The class had a paper due, and although Miss Aker was available via email regarding questions, Jennifer wasn't able to show her. And I added in brackets You can do that. I'll explain in a second. The paper like she planned. You can add in brackets. And I know some of you know how to do this already because I've seen it in your work. You can to add in commentary, clarification, to change things from like singular to plural, or change tenses to make it flow better. You can edit quotes that you pull in, actually, as long as you put brackets around whatever you changed, to let the reader know that you made an adjustment to that quote to make it fit better. And then same stuff here, same explanation. An example with synthesis, we talked about this in some earlier presentations, that the goal here is to use multiple sources and bring them together, make connections, and use several pieces of information, not just relying on one thing to make your point. So I could, this is just a quick example, I could start out with, during my research, I came to believe that flu shots are necessary during the flu season for everyone on campus. I learned that, according to the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, that when college students get the flu, they can average more than 8 days of illness, which can impact their class attendance and school performance. However, this problem can impact more than just the students. When I interviewed a UNCC student, Jennifer Pooler, kind of got into this again. And I just added this so I could include this interview. So it's one person's experience, combine it with data from the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, and it not only makes a clearer point, it makes a better point, because now I've come at it from more than one place, and that's what you want to kind of practice doing.